Hi, and welcome to our Thursday night mixer at KCRep. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties tonight, and so we are recording this and not streaming live. And so we really appreciate you joining us for this recorded version of the Thursday night mixer at KCRep. I'm Stuart Carden, Artistic Director, and I would be very excited to introduce and then to get mixing with tonight's guests. Joining us tonight is the Director of Education and Community Programs, Mindy Mccrary, and actor, teacher, teaching artist, and improviser, which I want to ask you about, Andy Perkins.
Hello.
Thank you guys for joining us and engaging in a little creative conversation. So the way this evening is going to work is we're going to attempt to mix a cocktail. After we mix the cocktail, we're going to engage in a little bit of creative conversation. And typically we then do a little Q&A, but because this is a recorded one, we're going to wrap with a final question about what we're all thinking about eating, drinking, experiencing when we can fully get back out there into the world. So this week's cocktail kit is from our official Thursday night mixer sponsor, Lifted Spirits, right here, Lifted Spirits Distillery. And each week they have been highlighting folks in our community who are pushing boundaries, taking risks, and redefining labels to celebrate the release of their Barrel Reserve #2 gin, which is a gin that's been aged in oak barrels and has this like kind of smoky aspect to it. It's a really interesting gin. And this week's cocktail, the Martinez, is in honor of Kemet Coleman, an urbanist, musician, and entrepreneur. And they took inspiration for this drink because Kemet loves booze-forward classic cocktails. So Lifted Spirits took this classic and put a little twist on it. And if you haven't seen this series that Lifted Spirits is doing, they're highlighting entrepreneurs and artists in the KC community, highlighting, making a video and sharing some of their stories and interviews. It's a really cool series, so you should check it out. And this week's drink, the Martinez, is in honor of Kemet Coleman. So Andy, Mindy, well, Andy, shall we mix? And Mindy has already mixed.
You can sip and watch. Oh, you gotta twist.
So Andy, I understand from someone that might be close to you that there's some involved cocktail making going on in your house lately.
It has been, yeah, one of the quarantine activities. We actually have a couple cocktail books and all the stuff that we would need to make cocktails. So I've kind of just been trying my hand at a couple different things. Yeah, it's been pretty fun. Been making Manhattans a lot. Got a lot of different whiskeys that I like to try out. And actually one of the grocery store runs involved a wide array of rums. So I tried a couple different tiki drinks as well.
Wow.
Has there been like a genre of drink that you didn't drink before that you've discovered and you think, oh, this is going to go in my repertoire?
Yeah, actually, I'll say gin fizz. I never really drank that too much, but it's one of those drinks that it's actually very labor intensive because you have to really shake it for a long amount of time to get that kind of foam head to it. So that was one that I kind of discovered and grew a liking for through all this.
I love it. And so we're going to do the Martinez is the Barrel Reserve #2 gin, Dolan Sweet Vermouth, and Luxardo Maraschino liqueur. And so that's what's in this batch. You can get a cocktail kit from Lifted Spirits just like this. And the batch has the Dolan Sweet Vermouth and Luxardo Maraschino liqueur. And we're doing 1 ounce of the batch. I'm just getting on mine.
Ooh, this liqueur smells good.
It does smell amazing. That's great. So 1 ounce of that, and then 2 ounces of the Barrel Reserve.
And I already made mine, so I'm just sipping and
And you've got one of the most classic cocktail cups.
that's a rep mug.
It's a rep mug?
Yep.
What's the show? What's it highlighting?
It's the whole season.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've got a million of these.
What season are you still living in, Mindy?
Let's see. Drinking from?
Yes.
That's
Season are you imbibing?
Yeah, what season are you imbibing?
That's 2010.
Okay, how is that? Was that a good year? Was that a good vintage?
Let me look. Yeah. We did, let's see. I can't even read it. Saved, Another American, Cabaret, Peer Gynt. Tell me when you get to the oranges.
Okay, almost there.
Okay.
I'm straining mine right now. How are you doing on yours, Andy?
I am, I think I might be ready.
Okay,
Oh, that looks beautiful.
I'm almost there.
I should have got a grown-up cup.
Yeah, the twist is twist time.
Twist time.
Twist time.
Time to shine, Mindy.
Twisting. You're going with the whole shebang, Mindy.
Get that wedge in there.
And Jen Spa told me right before I got on that a martini glass might be the appropriate glassware. So I ran downstairs and grabbed a martini glass from our wedding gift box that is rarely used.
I found it. Wow, that's impressive.
But cheers, friends. Thanks for joining the Thursday Night Mixer. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you to you.
Boom.
And you.
Smells so good.
Mm,
It is delicious.
that's amazing.
And I say the more orange, the better.
Mm. That is a drink.
I love that.
Really?
That's a serious drink. That's nice. It's really interesting. It's got some Manhattan qualities to it because of the oak in the gin and the cherry. Yeah, it's really quite good.
I could drink a few of these. This is great.
Well,
delicious.
Really grateful that you are going to spend a little time, and I've had the great fortune since September 3rd of last year to work with Mindy Mccrary and Andy. I'm just getting to know, and so I'm looking forward to spend a little time and getting to know you better, Andy. And so the spirit of this is to talk a little bit about what you're engaging in creatively in this moment, given the realities of the pandemic and the impact of the virus on our art form. And so we will do that, but we also want to highlight the work that both of you all have been doing, Andy as a teaching artist and Mindy as Director of Education on our Summer Youth Theater Ensemble. So I hope we can talk a little bit about that. But we'll start with what have you been doing creatively? Have there been things outside of, like, you've been so busy with Sight, I know both of you have been so busy with the Summer Youth Theater Ensemble, but how else have you been engaging creatively when given our art form has been disrupted in this moment?
Mindy, would you like to go first?
No, you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when everything first started, first of all, it took a while just to kind of get back into a frame of mind where I could even behave normally in any semblance of the word. So there was that phase of the pandemic. And then once I kind of felt like I finally got my feet underneath me, my best friend, Josh Gleason, and I are, Josh, who was in rehearsal of Noises Off at the time when everything went down. But he and I went to college together.
Yeah.
We've performed together. We're both improvisers. So we are in a troupe called Snooze Button. And so one of the things that we did is we just started to do digital sets. So over Zoom, we would just kind of get together, pretty much on a weekly basis and bring a guest in to kind of join in on the fun and just record these digital sets and start putting them out on a weekly basis. Took a little break from that, but I think we're probably going to get started going again because we're actually doing a digital improv festival, which sounds crazy.
Of course.
But it's called the Countdown Festival, and it's normally done in Tampa, but they moved it all online to stay safe, and so we're going to actually be participating in that this Sunday.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So for those of you that come in and engage with KCRep consistently, you'll recognize Andy from Diary of Anne Frank and Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, Pride and Prejudice, I wish I'd seen it, and also Christmas Carol ×2. Who did you play in Christmas Carol?
First year I did it, I was the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, so I got to work a big giant puppet, which was very fun. And then the second year I did it, I was Bob Cratchit. And
has worked all over the city, including the Coterie and Heart of American Shakespeare Festival and Spinning Tree Theater, and is a teaching artist and has taught on the college level as well, teaching artists at KCRep and Heart of American Shakespeare Festival and Coterie and KC Improv Company. And I'm always interested in this. Two quick questions on improv.
Yeah.
So was there a technique for coming up with your name, first of all? The naming of improv duos, trios, companies are all pretty unique. Was yours unique, or was it just like, oh, that's the name?
It was funny because
process for naming.
Yeah, names, they come from a lot of different sources. I wish ours had more of a kind of a mythology around it, but unfortunately it was just us kind of sitting on his couch, just kind of throwing things at each other, thinking about things. And then the one that made his wife, Caitlin, laugh was the one that we went with. So we are called Snooze Button.
Proof positive.
Yeah.
And what type of improv is it? What style of improv do you do?
Right. So it's kind of like there's a lot of different names. So it's long form, narrative, audience interactive.
Oh, cool.
So what we do is we always bring up an audience member, typically someone who's not an improviser, ideally. Yeah. And we will kind of interview them a little bit, ask them, like, what's a minor thing that's getting under your skin, a tiny thing that's annoying you? And then we make them the hero of their own story. So Josh and I play all the side characters and kind of narrate it through monologues to the audience. But we essentially just kind of take this audience member who didn't know they were going to be in a show that evening and allow them to star in their story, inspired by the interview that we had with them.
That's awesome.
That's super fun.
I want to check it out. Will you share a link with us? So we can check it out on whatever platform your improv is living on.
Yeah, we got a digital Snooze Button YouTube channel right now.
Awesome. Cool. And since we're recorded, we can put that up at any time.
Perfect.
So Mindy has a pretty remarkable all the words that I want to say, I immediately feel like you're not going to like. So I'm going to say this, which is has no, I'm going to go ahead and say it, has an historic relationship with UMKC and KCRep. I did not know about this. I did not know this about you until I read this in your bio. You began taking creative dramatic classes offered by UMKC when you were how many years old?
8.
When you were 8 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my brother played football. He was 7, and I was a cheerleader, but I wasn't so good at that. I mean, I was good. I loved it, but I think that my parents wanted me to have my thing.
Yeah.
And they thought I was pretty expressive. I read a lot of books. They needed me to be busy on Saturdays when Mike was at football. And my mother had just gone back to college at UMKC, and she saw, I think, a poster or something for creative dramatics. And I started doing it and just sort of didn't look back. And I, very fun, just found out that one of our teachers from Olathe South, Mr. Hastings, who brings students to see all of our plays, was in that youth theater group.
Oh, wow.
And he's younger than I am, and he actually got in trouble for kicking the curtains during one of the performances. And I said, if that was you kicking the curtains while I was out there flying around as Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream, I'm gonna bop you. But yeah, it's not a company that was there anymore. It was taught by a woman named Susan Denges, and then UMKC theater students. But that certainly made me feel really comfortable going to campus.
Yeah.
And kind of, we lived in the suburbs at the time.
Yeah, and so you have spent without exaggeration, a lifetime in the theater. If you started at 8, much earlier than I started to engage with theater. And then just a couple summers later, you were in, at then called Missouri Repertory Theater. You were in some summer shows, including playing Tilly in the classic, but never performed anymore, The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigold, which was done forever, and then suddenly not ever, but directed by Dr. McElrath.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that I went and auditioned, and I did a Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream, and I did an improv. I said, give me a person, place, and thing, because I'd learned that in class. And you know, the bravery of youth, you know, it's the apprehension and the fear that expands and clouds around as you get older. They said, well, here's a real little girl. We'll use a real little girl, which was odd to me because I thought, well, yeah, it's a real little girl role. But I will say, even though, I mean, it was 5 women directed by a woman, and it took me a while to catch on. That wasn't necessarily how theater was. Yeah. And then I, 2 summers later, did another. That's when the Rep did shows in the summer. I did another season with different roles.
And I kind of knew this about you, but this really, I loved reading this, that you've performed in over 31 productions in Kansas City, because I know you as our director of education, and I know you with your interaction with students and young people, and I know you from how we partner in the artistic office. I don't know you at all as an actor. I knew that you acted quite extensively, but over 31 productions at KCRep alone?
Well, 11 of those are Christmas Carol, if that.
They still count. They count even more. And traveled as a member of the touring company on 7 regional national tours as an actor, understudy, or company manager. And also performed at other regional theaters around the country, which is...
Well, yeah, it was by accident. I did not say. In fact, Dr. Mack wanted me to go to UMKC. I said, hell no, I'm getting out of town. I'm going to go to St. Louis. And was hired back here to do a show after I'd been kind of traveling, doing things. So it's and as I said earlier, I used to be the youngest person at the Rep. Now I will say the context of all of that has become one of the most valuable elements of my life, because it is rich. I love history of all kinds, of all places, to know that, but to the dynamics of the now and of what's moving forward, partially because I know Dr. Mack would want that. People often say, Dr. Mack wouldn't like this, she wouldn't like that, and she would love everything that moves it forward.
So for those that out there that don't know the name Dr. Mack, she looms very large over both UMKC Division of Theater and actually has a street named after her on campus, and very large in the history and founding of Kansas City Repertory Theater, formerly Missouri Repertory Theater. And I think it was my first interview here. Like, people still refer to her with such casual ease that I was like, this person's still around, right? She has an office down the hall. How often she was referenced.
The place, I don't know.
And so many revere her and her legacy at the university and at KCRep. So we dug into bio for a little while, Mindy. So what have you been outside of your work at KCRep and site? Have you been engaging in things creative in this moment, either because of the pandemic and the degree to which you're sheltering in place, or otherwise? Is there other things you're engaged in creatively? Yatunde Felix Ukwu was
I'm aware.
All about the puzzles
and
that she was doing.
I mean,
there was a COVID puzzle phase that she's going through. How about for you? Are there things big or small that you're engaged in creatively?
Well, I can't stand puzzles, so I'm your soul sister on that.
Yeah.
And so I know I have not been doing that. And I haven't, I would say a sort of odd thing sort of hit me, even with all the streaming theater. And I certainly think that being an audience member is an extremely creative endeavor. But as you well know, we all went home and were on our computer all day. Yeah. And it was going to be the last thing I wanted to do. But I read, I've been reading a lot, and I've just in the last couple of weeks or a month started, I like to draw in watercolor, and I'm terrible at it. And I started doing it, I don't know, years ago when I had time, particularly as an actor.
Yeah.
And I would say as a recovering extrovert, I love to just sit and be quiet and do little cards, homemade cards that make me, it's a quieting of the mind. It isn't performative.
Yeah.
It isn't verbal. Mm-hmm. And it's really good for me. So the creativity for me has been small and quiet and reading. And, in a sense, dismantling myself, which is kind of a timely word in some ways, but, and then,
Is the act the dismantling? Or what the act of the watercoloring and the sketching is the dismantling? What do you mean by that?
I think dismantling can be creative. I mean, I think they're all sort of mixed up in my head right now, or they're blended, I should say, with what feels active or where my focus is.
Yeah.
When I'm not in my computer.
But what's the dismantling?
I would say something very resonant to me since we've been in pandemic palace, and since the murder of George Floyd, is how white-centered the world is, my world is, a lot of my history is, and so I think it's really influenced what I choose to watch. It's just trying to be intentional about, I just rewatched I Am Not Your Negro about James Baldwin on Netflix, and it just should be monthly required watching for every human being. But just being more, I have to say it probably involves a lot of television watching, biographies, documentaries, trying to choose to get out of the center.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to what degree has that intersected with your reading list?
Oh, well, my reading is much less successful.
It's been more about documentaries and biographies and
I have a stack of books.
Yeah.
And I hope to tackle them soon.
Yeah.
Plays, I think that you recommended, so I will recommend the Steppenwolf Passover, which is available to view on Amazon Prime. Was fabulous, and just.
I mean, that piece could not be more powerfully timely. It's an amazing piece about police brutality, and but it's about so much more. And it, do you know this piece, Andy?
I don't know.
And it's loosely based on Waiting for Godot, but it's set in a contemporary urban setting and two young Black men, and they're both waiting for Godot and also asking themselves, will they step out of their neighborhood into a new life, and what keeps them in this space is kind of the journey of the story. It is such a remarkable piece of writing, and the two performers, the two leads in the Steppenwolf production are just phenomenal. Julian is somebody that I worked with. Julian is somebody that I worked with who was one of those two actors. And he's superb, and it's so good. And Spike Lee came in and filmed the theatrical staging of it, which was really unique and really interesting. I recommend that piece too. Wonderful. So we're kind of segueing nicely into consuming. What are you creatively consuming or consuming creatively? Andy, for you, are there things that in this moment, either the social justice movement or the pandemic, that you're finding, oh, I have a hunger for this and I didn't know I had a hunger for it, or I'm going to try something new, and you're trying something new?
So I have to represent Team Puzzle since it sounds like we're outnumbered.
No!
I am a puzzler. So I'm looking at it's not opened yet, but the Sistine Chapel is staring at me from the bar right now. So I need to get to work on that soon.
Oh, I knew that. I forgot that.
What is the deal? Help me understand what the attraction is.
I think for me, I'm
just stressed out the whole time. I am stressed out, and it asks you to contort your body, and also I'm half blind, and so I have to do this all the time. I hate it with a passion.
I think it's a focus issue.
Mindy.
What's over there?
I have deep focus.
Yeah, you do.
I'm also a little bit of a...
What were you saying?
I'm also a little bit of a magpie, sure. But Andy, please help me. It will help my marriage. Because my wife really is into puzzles, and she wants the twins and I to do them with her. Help me intellectually understand the pleasure of the puzzle.
Sure. I think for me, what I appreciate about it is that the pieces ultimately have to go together. And so there is, there's a completion to it. So I think it's kind of very fun and very satisfying, at least for me, to take disorder and put it into order.
Okay. Intellectually, yes. Especially in this moment when there feels like there's no order.
Exactly. Just the tiny control of putting 1,000 pieces together. That's all I need right now.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. I feel that. I just don't think it's puzzles for me.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. The war goes on.
So the other question that I've been often asking folks during this mixer that I just find endlessly fascinating because I've been reflecting on this a lot about the intersection of both the pandemic and the revelations that have come from on every level of our society from the pandemic, and similarly the revelations that have come from the social justice movement and the anti-racist movement that is permeating our entire country, the theater, our schools, our government, our business models, our fabric of our society. Those two things have just asked us to reflect a lot on who have we been, who are we now, and who might we become. And I don't mean to set this up with too much hyperbole and too much stakes around this question, because I'm interested in the small stuff and the big stuff with this question, which is, are there things that you feel like this moment are asking you to leave behind from the way that you navigated the world and thought about the world? Are there things that feel like 100% right now, I'm doing this right now, I probably won't do it later when we go back to some form of normalcy? And are there things that you're going to carry forward and integrate from either you're letting go or you're adding into into your life in the future? So I feel like I set that up in a kind of grand way. But I'm really fascinated by the small stuff and the big stuff. Are there things that flash for you in terms of those categories?
Yeah, I would say so. I think to talk about the first part a little bit, the idea of what we can, leave behind, or at least start to work on that is, as a teacher, you're the one who's kind of setting the tone of the room. You're the one that is, facilitating the flow of information, guiding conversations, things like that. And so what I've been reading a lot of is the idea of, decolonizing your curriculum. And that is something that I've been reflecting a lot on lately. Particularly, this whole thing started in the middle of our spring break, actually. I teach at Avila University as an adjunct professor. And so we were all just kind of reeling and trying to figure things out, transitioning from in-person to online classes, and now kind of going into the fall semester now with a little bit more of, our feet underneath us. We can actually take the time to kind of take a look at our curriculum and figure out, okay, what have we been doing that maybe is not equitable? How have we been behaving? How have we been, as teachers, as professors, how have we been guiding the classroom that perhaps was alienating members of the class through implicit bias, through just, this is what I was taught, so this is how I'm going to teach it, as opposed to critically analyzing those methods. So I've happened upon actually, Mindy, I think you were the one that shared it originally, the Teaching While White blog. So I've actually been reading that a lot lately, and it's been very helpful, just to kind of start thinking about the curriculum and leading a classroom in that context. And then to kind of go, yeah, please.
Is really powerful. And also, I've been thinking about that phrase, decolonizing the classroom, or decolonizing the curriculum. And many folks have a really strong reaction to that, because built into it are so many implications. have you, how have you navigated that idea in term? And was there a transition for you from hearing that idea, processing that idea, beginning to implement that idea into the way that you think about teaching?
Yeah, I think I'm probably still processing it because I'm still, because these things, the systems, the methods, they're ingrained, right? We have been colonized to kind of, behave in a certain way and react to things in a certain way. So it's not just decolonizing the curriculum; it's also kind of our own, mental process and our own implicit bias and things like that. So I think it's an ongoing process, but it's almost a decolonizing, because you do absorb information when you're younger and you're taught in a certain way, and that just keeps getting handed down and down through these racist structures. So that system is inherited by us, and then it's our responsibility to kind of dismantle it as best we can, when we have, we're gatekeepers in a certain context, and so we have to kind of reflect on, okay, what gates am I keeping, and how can I fling the doors open, I guess is the best way to put it.
And for me, when there's strong reaction to that idea, that one of the things I think about a lot, and is that this is not about erasure.
Mm-hmm.
This is about balancing the conversation, and balancing and really embracing a diversity of perspective that is going to make the art form richer, that's going to make conversations richer, that's going to make organizations richer. And for me, like, always focusing on the things that are additive about making a shift to prioritize other voices and perspectives, whether it's a historical perspective or a contemporary perspective. And like finding that, like, because I often feel like in conversations with certain folks that haven't become accustomed to terms like that, and certain people even like with anti-racism that haven't become accustomed to it, that there's a very strong reactive, sometimes defensive reaction to it. But when you frame it as this is not about saying people are bad, or saying this is bad, or we shouldn't do this, it's about saying, look at this as well. This is beautiful, it has value, and should be engaged. And why are we not engaging it? Let's engage it.
Right.
And I feel like that is something that I was a part of my practice as an artist to a degree, but has been kindled and sparked, similar to you, it sounds like, Andy, in this moment.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you, Mindy? Leave behind of this moment, inebriated ironing of this moment. That was an inside joke. It was an inside joke. Are there things that that in those categories? Is there something in those categories?
Well, I certainly echo everything Andy said so well about my work with youth, and just thinking about what an absolutely freakish, absurd year this is. And that I think I want to leave behind a certain kind of ignorance.
Yeah.
I want to leave behind anger. I want to leave behind defensiveness. And I don't want to be the center of the story. One thing I certainly do remember starting theater early was what it did to my heart.
Yeah.
I think I'm on a bit of a beautiful treadmill trying to recreate that for other people, and feeling like I really had that in hand.
Yeah.
With all the great work the rep does, with all the teaching I've done, I was a terrible waitress to support myself. So I started teaching, and I think that I feel shy, like newly shy. And I'd like to keep that going forward at the same time that I'm kind of more active.
Yeah.
And just also social justice, but also, I would say one thing I want very, very personally is I'm kind of a hermitress too, and I thrive on solitude, but solitude is not isolation. And this is isolation.
Yeah.
And what we have seen and experienced listening to the youth of this from the Summer Youth Theater Ensemble is how isolated they feel, which is kind of how you feel when you're a teenager anyway. So just to walk with a certain kind of shy courage, having learned a lot, that's very much inspired by them, and Andy, and Yatunde,
Yeah.
and Alif, I'm very eager to get all this, the health pandemic out of the way, so we can get out, and I hope I go with a larger sense of empathy and understanding.
You've just shared so many really beautiful and profound things. You really have, Mindy. I appreciate you. And you have also just put together two words that have never been put together before in the American, in the English language, which is beautiful treadmill. You're on this beautiful treadmill. I think it's the first time those two words have ever been put together.
When people write down things I love, or when people say things I love, I write them down. And just the other day, Stuart said, "Whirling nerves."
Whirling nerves, sure.
Well, yeah, I know that may have been said before, actually, but you also one time said scenic dread.
Scenic dread. That was a class I taught at Carnegie Mellon University. How to create scenic dread on stage in the American theater was definitely a class I taught in my 30s. So we have to right now talk about Sight. We have about 5 minutes left.
Oh boy.
Right now have to talk about Sight. So Sight, Summer Youth Theater Ensemble. Our guests last week were Yatunde Felix Uku and Mr. Gillette, Khalif Gillette, who joined us last week, and we talked quite a bit about Sight. Andy is the other teaching artist as a part of Sight. Mindy is the architect of Sight, and also this new version of Sight, which is all digital. And they're going to go, after our conversation right now, which is happening on Thursday evening, August 13th, they're going to go have a premiere with the Sight Ensemble this year, just a closed premiere for them. And then next week, next Friday, which would be the 20th, Friday the 20th, there'll be the premiere. Is that right? I think
or the 21st, maybe?
21st will be the premiere of, on YouTube, the piece that these really brilliant young people have put together. So can you, unfortunately, we talked so much that we only have a little bit of time for this, but can you share a little bit with folks the experience of Sight and what you're taking away from it, please?
Sure, yeah. This is my third summer teaching for Sight, and it is hands down one of the highlights of my year, just to be able to be in the room and work creatively with all of these young artists. Just like Mindy was talking about, that idea of, being so young, there's kind of fearlessness that goes along with that in their creation. And so we're there to like prompt, we're there to help shape and mold, but all of this content, all of the stuff that they're creating, whether it is monologues or poetry or songs or visual art, scenes, sketches, whatever it is, it's all coming straight from them. And it's pretty remarkable, you know, what they're able to come up with. Because I always think back to when I was in high school, because that's the age that these artists are. And I was not thinking about these things, right? I was not engaged in this way. I didn't even know what devising was until I got to grad school. So the fact that they are, as an ensemble, tackling these issues, both kind of societal and personal, in such a nuanced way, and creating it all on their own it's just mind-blowing and spectacular, honestly. So it's a great honor to be able to work with them every summer.
And it's democracy at work too.
Yes,
you know?
There's a lot of compromises along the way.
Yeah, and there's also the beauty of what it asks of them in terms of empathy, and working towards a shared story. Even if they're writing individually and creating individually, they're still a part of a larger narrative. And you've got to both tell your own story and also fold into the fabric of the larger narrative in this country, in this world. And this is an amazing democratic experience for these young folks. And I'm so grateful for you all who have been shepherding the process to give them voice during the pandemic, when so many people are desperate to be heard right now. Mindy, how about for you? Any takeaways in a minute or two?
Right. Well, it is our 4th year of site. The first summer we had about 38 young people on the stage, supported. They did their own play. The whole program is about, I mean, I could list 20 things it's about and the benefits of it, but it's primarily about connectivity and creativity.
Yeah.
And so connectivity with their own creativity and connectivity with each other. It's a free program, which is very important to us to keep it accessible. And the first summer we had about almost 40 young people, which was beautiful and way too many. We went down to about 23 the second year. Last year, a smaller group, and this year in our Zoom studio, 13 young faces and young hearts and young talents. And it's, you know, in so many ways, I don't know if you agree, Andy, but it's functioned positively in the way that it always does. But they bring their own personality individually and then as an ensemble. And then the personality of the teaching team also is kind of in the stew. And we really just kind of build the diving board and they're the dive. Yeah. And they are just the ensemble. They've conceived of a really meta piece about 13 young people who get stuck in a Zoom room. And, you know, what's different for us is that we have been involved in editing a short film, and that is not what we do. Fortunately, we have Khalif on board who does, he's done the work of all the designers to take their work and make it, give it professional support that the rep wants to give it, and just everyone's spirit. The funny things we learned about working in Zoom. You know, people might not come back from lunch, so you text them. Oh, you're there, good. You know, it's been a summer of summers and just fabulous. I'm so proud of them. They're very sweet hearts. Come through in the story they've created.
I've had a couple moments to be able to intersect with both their creative work, and then one opportunity to step in and just say hi early in the process. And I'm really so excited about seeing the culmination of what you all have created together. And I know it's going to be really rewarding, and people can check that out. It will premiere a week from, so because we're recorded on the 21st on Friday.
Right.
Please check it out. This is a free program that has been very meaningful to the young artists involved. And I'm really appreciative to you, Andy, and of course, my friend Mindy, and also Khalif Gillette and Yatunde Felix Uhu for really leading this entire process with the Summer Youth Theater Ensemble at KCRep. We're gonna have to wrap. We typically do a Q&A, but we've run out of time. And I want to be respectful to our colleague and friend Jen in terms of her timeline for the night. But I want to give a shout out, and you'll have to tell me separately what you're going to eat, drink, and experience. But I want to give a shout out and thanks again to Lifted Spirits, and remind people that you can, and this cocktail is so good, that you can order a cocktail kit from Lifted Spirits at liftedspiritskc.square.site, and they're available for pickup at 1734 Cherry Street. So thanks to Lifted Spirits for sponsoring this series. It's been really amazing that they've done so. And we're going to do 2 more of these. The next one will be on Thursday the 20th, and then one final one. We'd love for you to join us, and we would love for you to buy a cocktail kit and support those that are supporting us, having some creative conversations. Andy, Mindy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who joined us. Take care, and we'll see you soon.